Hey, Greg Moulton here from Matrix Motion Fitness Studios, and I just want to take a moment to go over what muscle activation techniques is, how it can help you, kind of the differences within the technique itself. It is a foundation to what we believe in, what we approach, or how we approach our fitness programs here, and exercise-based therapy, if you will. And so I wanted just to take this time to kind of go over it a little bit. So MAT, it's a non-invasive approach to reestablishing balance throughout our bodies. So the human body by nature should be symmetrical. Whatever the right side of your body can do, the left side should be able to do the same thing, regardless of what that movement might be between shoulders, hips, legs, kind of every motion within your body. Fortunately, the activities that we go through on a daily basis are largely asymmetrical by nature. So whether you're playing a sport in baseball where you always swing on one side and you're biasing the muscles and that movement pattern to that single side, or even if you're talking about like working on a computer on a desk, you've always got your mouse on one hand, and so now you're creating this imbalance that is minor, but when it added up, it's going to create these large effects, and we want to minimize those as best as possible. So MAT can take an inside view as to what's going on within your muscular system. It helps to identify which muscles are working well and kind of supporting you as best as they can, but more importantly, it works at identifying the ones that aren't working or aren't functioning optimally. And those are the ones that we want to focus on. So we want to focus on the weakness side of things, to help reestablish an environment for your body, your muscular system to support itself better. So this is a key part to what MAT is all about, and one thing that kind of sets itself apart from other modalities. Now, within the MAT umbrella, there are kind of different levels in terms of knowledge and what that technique is all about. Starting with what's called Jumpstart. So Jumpstart focuses on isometric contractions. It's a form of exercise where you're holding static positions and trying to reestablish a neuromuscular control via the exercise. Then you can get up into more of what's called a certified specialist, and even into their mastery level. This is now getting into more of a hands-on manual technique where you are able to identify individual muscular weaknesses as best as possible, understanding that there are multiple muscles that are responsible for certain movements, and so it's just recognizing that, but the ability to pinpoint things a little bit more closely. The mastery level is just allowing you to fine-tune those skills a little bit more, and kind of going beyond that point. So the best way that I can explain this, think about painting a room. So if we were to paint this room, if you were to try to paint the entire room with a paintbrush, it would take you forever. It's not something that you can do quickly, but it'll allow you to cut in around all the edges. It'll give you the opportunity to do all your trim work really nicely and neatly and have this nice crisp appearance by the end of it. Now, if you were to alternatively try to paint this room just with a roller, you could cover off the surface area of that wall quite quickly, but unfortunately, when it comes to the precise areas of cutting and trim work, it's just going to be sloppy and looking like a mess. So when it comes to MAT, taking that analogy, the certified specialist, the ability to work more from a manual hands-on therapy-based approach and pinpointing individual muscles, it's like working with a paintbrush. You can get very specific with what you're doing, but it will take longer to work through certain ranges of motion or regions within the body, but the precision and specificity within that is far greater and allows us to accomplish, I feel, more than what you could via the isometrics perhaps. And then if you're looking at MAT and then looking within that roller scenario, that roller is like doing that jump start. It's like doing those isometrics where you can cover off large amounts of space relatively quickly, but you can't get as specific as you might need to. So it's certainly understanding the differences between them and where each one comes into play. Now, that's not necessarily for you to figure out. That's where you kind of leave it to a certified specialist to implement the appropriate tool at the appropriate time. And when you have the ability to work and pinpoint those individual muscles and go through the treatment side of things and get things activated and working a little bit better, then we can prescribe those isometrics as corrective scenarios, and we can take that now further into more of a performance-based aspect once all those muscles are working properly, which is a good segue into one of the pieces of equipment that we have here called the IsoFit, which I'll kind of save for another day to get into, but focusing entirely on those isometric contractions and how to increase your body's performance via the isometrics. So when it comes to that MAT thought process, again, it's just recognizing that if you want to be very specific with what your treatments are and how to overcome these ailments, you want to make sure that you are looking at a certified specialist in order to see those individual muscular weaknesses and kind of pinpoint them from there, and then work towards the isometric exercise and then getting yourself back to proper movements beyond that. So this is one of the areas that we focus on at Matrix of Motion. It's one of those techniques that we have found to be a fantastic adjunct or an opportunity to bridge that gap from therapy, traditional therapies, into exercise. And that activation component, I think, is one part that's really missing within the fitness industry. So I know this was a bit of a longer video, so thank you for bearing with me. But again, it's just important to recognize the differences between different modalities, understanding that we want to activate everything first and get it working as best as we can prior to getting into that exercise scenario, and that's what you're going to find here at Matrix of Motion.